Nancy Cool, and I'm the program coordinator for Bruce County Public Library. For today's Library Talks with Chat, we welcome Matt Cunliffe, the Senior Park Interpreter at MacGregor Point Provincial Park. Today, Matt will share with us an overview of Ontario parks with a focus on the amenities, heritage values, and recreational opportunities at the parks found within Bruce County. And we will also talk a little bit about the Park Pass program partnership between Ontario Provincial Parks and libraries. Before we get started, we have just a few little housekeeping items. So while listening and watching today, we encourage you to submit any questions or comments to the web form on the Bruce County Public Library website. And you should be able to see that link on our screen here or in the comments during the presentation. And we will address any questions following the presentation. You may wish to take this opportunity to grab a pen and a piece of paper to jot down any information you want to remember later. And if you don't get a chance to watch live, this presentation will be recorded and posted here on the library's YouTube channel in our special guests playlist. You will find the recording there so you can watch it later and share with your friends and family. And if you haven't already, remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel to keep up to date with all our live presentations. Following the presentation, we encourage you to fill in our short evaluation form, and the link is in the description for this event and on our website. Your feedback and stories help show the value of what the library does in our communities. So Matt has worked with Ontario Parks since 2006. Starting as a summer student, aspiring to be an elementary school teacher, he fell in love with the outdoor classroom and he's never looked back. He has worked as a park interpreter, developing educational programs, a park planner, developing policy and management direction, and even a short stint as a head gate attendant at Huron. And he has recently returned to his home park as the senior park interpreter at MacGregor Point. So we welcome you today, Matt, and we're really excited to hear and watch your presentation.
Well, thank you, Nancy. Yeah, happy to be here. Before I begin, I just want to thank the Bruce County Museum, or Bruce County Library, sorry, for inviting me to speak today, and all the work that Nancy and Jeremy do behind the scenes to make all this happen. So thank you very much. I'm always eager to chat with local community members about our provincial park system and the local parks in our county that I think everyone should know about. And yeah, after a 4-year stint in policy and planning, now I'm back here doing my first community outreach program, which is pretty exciting at arguably one of the best parks in the province. Um, so yeah, Ontario Parks. This organization plays such a significant role in the preservation of our provincial biodiversity, as well as the protection of our natural and cultural heritage values. These are places that have been cherished for generations as areas providing for outdoor recreational opportunities. A lot of people think about parks, they think about tents and camping, and as well as places for creating these lifelong memories that people cherish. Um, though I never really came from a camping family, I too, my life, my career path was forever changed by one of these memories made in a provincial park. An interior camping trip on Opiongo Lake, and of course Algonquin. Yeah, put me on the path that I'm on today, way back when I was 7 years old. So that that memory that I have always reminds me of the strong emotional connections that people make to these places. And if you're not a regular park visitor, I hope that that you get out and get to form those connections with these special places. Our provincial parks, they provide a wide spectrum of activities, and they encourage everything from research by academic organizations to the simple play, exploration, and discovery of locals. Now, of course, with COVID-19 and any visitation this year, please do only visit provincial parks that are close to your home. And it's paramount to follow all public health advice and the current provincial guidelines when you are out exploring. So Ontario Parks, we'll do a brief background before we dive into our local parks. To paraphrase Darwin, To evolve, one must be adaptable to change, and Ontario Parks has accomplished this through these regular reviews of our strategic direction. I'm sharing here our current vision and mission statement. Now, a lot of folks when they come to parks, um, when they come to the programs too that we run with our discovery program, learn more about this during their stay. Now, and even the Ontario Parks logo, it's something that I like to talk with new staff about because there's so much thought that just went into something as simple as a logo. You know, it identifies what people think of when asked about, what do you think of with Ontario Parks when you think about Ontario Parks? The trees um, provide that constant backdrop for the multitude of activities that visitors enjoy in our provincial parks. The water threads its way through the parks and gives us a pathway to explore the wilderness. And the waves themselves represent the pillars that Ontario Parks stands for. So just a neat little fact about the OP logo itself. So having a long history, Ontario Parks has been around for over 125 years, with the first provincial park being established in 1893 as, of course, the infamous Algonquin. Um, it We have well over 340 properties now. There's 340 provincial parks, but now 295 conservation um, reserves as well. And so the total amount of land that Ontario Parks protects is closer to 10 million hectares, or nearly 10% of the provincial landmass. Largest provider of outdoor recreational opportunities and quite a widespread organization. So since we have hundreds of parks, covering millions of hectares of land. You can imagine there's some challenges in trying to manage an organization this big. So the structure of Ontario Parks has been separated into 5 zones. You know, the Northwest Zone with numerous wilderness parks, these vast open areas, or untouched areas rather, and long waterway parks. The Northeast Zone, our largest zone in the province, with the largest provincial park in the province, Polar Bear Provincial Park, up in Hudson's Bay. The Algonquin Zone, appropriately titled, as Algonquin takes up most of the zone boundary there. And then Southeast Zone, you know, um, parks on the shores of Lake Ontario and then the inland lakes of southeastern Ontario. And then uh, the Southwest Zone, which I've spent most of my career working for, um, housing quite a bit of the province's population and supporting farmland. This zone looks a little bit different than the other ones. You know, the park size on average is much smaller because there's quite a bit of private land in the area. Um, and with southwestern Ontario housing the majority of our species at risk in the province and our highest density of biodiversity in the province, arguably these parks are even more important. So within the southwest zone of Ontario parks, we have 22 operating parks, um, protect over 27,000 hectares of land. You know, we as I mentioned earlier, provide the highest protection to the highest density of species at risk in Ontario and undertake every year unique resource management projects. Recently, there's a quaint little park near Lake Erie called John E. Pierce, and there has been an ongoing wetland restoration project there, bringing wetlands back that were once there, had been converted to farmland and now back into natural habitats, as well as ongoing invasive species control in our parks. And something I've been able to get more involved with over the past few years would be prescribed burns in places like Pinery, which help to restore grassland habitat within the oak savanna. So Ontario parks, we're guided by legislation the Provincial Parks and Conservation Reserves Act. In this, the whole purpose is to permanently protect this area or this system of provincial parks um, that includes ecosystems that are representative of all of Ontario's natural regions. And to do so in a manner that protects it uh, forever for everyone to enjoy. Within this act, it mentions the maintenance of ecological integrity, and that term, for those that aren't familiar with it, is it's um, the integrity of or ecological integrity is unimpeded um, ecosystem function. So we just want things to nature to proceed as natural as possible. Within this act, we have our 4 objectives. The first being to permanently protect representative ecosystems, biodiversity, and provincially significant elements of Ontario's natural and cultural heritage. Um, we want to be able to also provide opportunities for ecologically sustainable outdoor recreation. And it's more important than ever to connect all peoples with the natural environment and encourage proper stewardship of the land. My department specifically focuses on educating all visitors to increase their knowledge and appreciation of Ontario's natural and cultural heritage by helping people build stronger connections to the land. And through this, the ultimate goal is to help create a more sustainable future. And then science being our 4th objective, we encourage scientific research and the incorporation of traditional knowledge. We have academic organizations every year that submit research applications to conduct activities within our parks, as these areas are becoming little havens um, for unimpeded ecosystem function and provide valuable data, not just for on the local level, but across the field. The act itself further identifies the different classifications of parks that we have. Now, each park is unique. There's not one that's the same as the other. And to help with management direction in these provincial parks, they're categorized into either wilderness parks, these vast untouched areas, a nature reserve, which in contrast are very small, usually small parcels of land that we have within the system, primarily for protection. Cultural heritage, you know, areas that have played an important role in human history overall, and those values uh, that need to be protected and preserved. A natural environment park, which is my home park, MacGregor Point, and it's the one I have the most experience with, where we just encourage um, ecosystems to function as naturally as possible, but have a bit more use or permitted uses than a nature reserve, such as camping. Waterway parks, significant waterways for um, the preservation of our river and lake health, and then recreational parks. So think more along the lines of those heavy camping parks and activities like frisbee golf, because who doesn't love a good game of frisbee golf? Pardon me. And with the challenges that we've all faced this year, I don't think it's any surprise to folks that there's been a noticeable increase in our parks and the outdoor recreational opportunities that can be had here. So a few things to keep in mind when you are choosing a park to visit is that there is a difference between operating and non-operating parks. Um, Operating parks offer facilities such as washrooms. Important thing to make note of before you head out for an adventure, as well as camping and other amenities such as park stores. But not all parks are the same. So I recommend to anybody who is going to a park for the first time and one local to your home, be sure to visit the park's official webpage to see what services are available at that location. Non-operating parks have very few to no services, uh, and very limited public access in many places. A lot of them are those nature reserves that are set aside primarily for protection. So just be mindful before heading out, um, that even though the park might be close to your home, if it's a non-operating park, there's likely not a washroom there for you, and parking would be limited. Now, permitted activities within parks are determined on a park by park basis. Like I said, not all parks are the same. So again, check the website to see what's available. But of course, some of our most popular would be hiking and biking. Some parks do offer canoeing or kayaking, although rentals are likely not happening this year. Um, there's great fishing opportunities for those young anglers out there. And then I think by far the most popular for our parks within Bruce County is just the general nature appreciation. Whether you're a budding or experienced birder, or you just like trees or reptiles are your thing, there's always something out there to be found during your discovery and exploration. Which brings me to our local parks. So MacGregor Point isn't just a park; it's the hub of um, of our entire cluster of parks within Bruce County. Um, so it's the headquarters for managing the 3 operating parks and 9 non-operating parks in the area. Now, MacGregor, I'm going to save the best for last. So we'll save it for last, um, and we'll cover the 2 other operating parks first. So our 2 sister parks that provide camping opportunities would be Sauble Falls on the left and Inver Huron on the right. Sauble Falls is a recreation class park, with the main attraction being, and you've guessed it, the quaint falls. Um, they're beautiful and they're fun for people to enjoy, but what most folks don't realize is that the park is underlain by the Guelph Formation, uh, which all of you geology junkies out there recognize. So it's for those of you that don't, it's a middle Silurian period um, reefal complex composed of grayish to brown dolomite. Sweet. But for those of you that don't get as excited about rocks as I do, um, so what? Well, the Silurian period occurred in the area of 430 million years ago. And what's really cool about this is it was witness to a significant evolutionary milestone. So being the diversification of jaw fish and bony fish, as well as the first time multicellular life began to appear on land. So a weird fact that you can impress your family with next time you're standing at the falls. Now, Inver Huron is a cultural heritage class park and the only one in the province that allows for camping, I believe. This park contains many sites of prehistoric and historic interest, which span at least 3,000 years, from the archaic indigenous people to European settlement. So, Inver Huron actually represents one of the largest known archaic sites in the province, which is pretty cool. What I find so compelling about this place is just how long humans have interacted with this place. Now, both parks offer trails. The Sauble Falls with its self-titled Sauble Trail, and Inver Huron with its River, Chain, and Maloney trails. Beautiful places to visit. Which brings me back to MacGregor Point. This uh, lovely spot which I have to admit I am quite biased about. It was the park that I started my career in. It is a natural environment park, and it's open year round with over 20 kilometers of trails. So lots of places and opportunities for exploration. MacGregor Point, and in fact, all three of our operating parks are located within the Kincardine Eco District. So this is a long, narrow strip of land that hugs the Lake Huron shoreline, and it showcases distinct relict shorelines and wave-cut terraces of past glacial lakes. Again, super cool for the geography nerds. This area is used as a migratory corridor for birds, bats, and insects alike. Sorry, and yeah, it's quite the interesting uh, eco district. Again, I might be biased. I grew up on the shores of Lake Huron in Point Clark, uh, so this will always be near and dear to my heart. Now, within MacGregor Point itself, there's natural features which include, the successional coniferous and mixed forest types that we have here, as well as a variety of wetlands, which is why I fell in love with the park. Um, these wetlands include ash and thicket swamps, a variety of aquatic community types. You've got fens and coastal meadow marshes and communities that those communities being some of my favorite. Um, the park itself, which is what blows me away, it provides habitat for various, globally, nationally, provincially, and locally significant flora, um, including some species that are endemic to the Great Lakes Basin, which is it really neat stuff. Now the park, this place has an interesting history as well. Before the park was established as a park, the area was used by Ojibwe and pioneer hunters and farmers who used the land to sustain their families. Um, the uh, the whole park is cut by one of those relic shorelines. Um, it's called the Nipissing Bluff. Stretches across the entire length of the park itself, and the higher parts above that Nipissing Bluff, um, there used to be homesteads. We have remnant orchards that are still around, and the wetter areas down below that Nipissing Bluff, those were areas for hunting waterfowl and for fishing. Um, what a lot of our park visitors don't realize is that within the past 100 to 120 years, all the trees with the park had been cut. So we don't know of any old growth at Meagher, which makes this site very interesting for monitoring succession of ecosystems and ecosystem change. One of the features that makes MacGregor Point such a unique place is the depth of ecosystem connectivity that we have within the park. And this level of connectivity is rarely seen within southwestern Ontario today. We've got nearly a 2 kilometer swath of park that protects habitats all the way from the present shoreline to upland mixed forests and provides refuge for many species. MacGregor Point itself is a hub of biodiversity, including three really cool plants, all carnivorous. The bladderwort and the sundew, which is the top left on the screen, and the pitcher plant on the bottom left. And of course, a multitude of amphibians and reptiles, uh, such as the leopard frog and the ribbon snake pictured here. So my department within MacGregor Point is part of Ontario Parks Discovery Program, and it plays a crucial role for the park and the protection of the values found within the park itself. And we do this through educating the public about biodiversity and conservation, and we contribute valuable information through our observations to the management planning of the park itself, as well as leading those monitoring and restoration efforts um, from year to year. Now, I get asked by park visitors quite often when I bring up the term interpretation uh, that a lot of them think that I'm a translator and can speak many languages, and I know I've got a tenuous grasp on English at best. Um, and no, I've not been able to yet communicate the flowers and trees. Um, but in this context, interpretation is it's a mission-based communication process that forges emotional and intellectual connections between the audience or the visitor and the resource that the park protects. So simply put, my job in part is to help visitors understand and fall in love with these special places. So this is typically accomplished through in-person programs, whether within the community or within the park itself, or through self-led activities such as our interpretive signage, family-based scavenger hunts, or most recently our digital adventure lab created by a past staff member, Kathleen, pictured here. So for any of you geocachers out there, this adventure lab is worth checking out. Now with COVID-19, we've had to adapt our programming style. Um, so if you're visiting the park this year, there'll be an emphasis on self-led programs. And although these aren't occurring this year, we typically host guest presenters throughout the summer with live animal shows put on by organizations such as Wild Ontario, or Speaking of Wildlife. Um, Our staff also lead reptile rally programs, which are great ways to introduce park visitors to the wildlife in a meaningful and memorable way. A lot of folks are very, I call it the rule of four. They're a bit squirmy around creatures with less than 4 arms and legs or more than 4 arms and legs, snakes and spiders being the famous ones, and find that with programs like these, once folks are able to, in a controlled environment, get to learn a little bit more about these creatures, they come away with a better appreciation and a little less fear, which is good. So anyway, stay tuned for these in 2022. We also seek to reach our ecological integrity goals through resource management efforts within the park. So annually, staff remove several invasive species from shores and in particular wetlands within the park. Here, uh, staff are removing an invasive plant called Phragmites, or commonly called the European common reed. And species at risk monitoring also falls under our resource management efforts. Um, and those monitoring practices occur in the spring and summer. Now, this year, staff are going to be assisting me on a focus for managing European and glossy buckthorn, another prevalent invasive species or two species in the area. Ash was our dominant tree species in the park, and with the devastation caused by the emerald ash borer in recent years, these efforts will help to ensure that native trees have a better chance of succeeding in areas where ash has been lost, causing a healthier forest succession within the park. Um, and visitors, you as a visitor can always help lessen the spread of these invasive species by taking small little efforts at home. Now, one such item would be, cleaning your footwear before you come into the park, and then of course always staying on trails. In the picture here, for anybody that's curious, these are called buckthorn baggies, and so after the invasive tree is cut, um, simple plastic bag and zip tie are put around the stump in an hourglass formation. So any of the new shoots or suckers that come off this tree get trapped in the bag, and then the sun cooks it and effectively kills the invasive tree within a year or two. And as long as you're careful with snips, you can reuse these bags on other trees. So beyond invasive species management, we also conduct species inventories in the form of bioblitzes. There's long-term snake monitoring occurring in the park, and then of course the growing popularity in citizen science observation platforms such as eBird and iNaturalist. For those not yet familiar with iNaturalist, it's a fantastic citizen science platform where individuals can photograph species and submit them to, if you're in the park, our specific MacGregor Point project, or anywhere in the outdoors for that matter. Now, that said, it's encouraged that individuals do their best to identify these species on their own. It helps to do a bit of research and know a bit about those species themselves. But you've got this whole community of experts and enthusiasts who help to confirm your observations. And those confirmed observations, they contribute to our species inventories in these protected areas. And out of all the provincial parks that submitted iNaturalist programs last year, MacGregor had the second most out of the whole province. So that's it's a high bar to try and get over this year. More information about this program will be coming out from the park later this year. And beyond that, there's always academic research happening within the parks approved through our zone office. So these academic researchers have done everything from, gathering insects for better understanding of the genetics of certain species in the park to setting up acoustic monitoring stations for migratory species. And this has got to be one of my favorite photos that's been taken recently. The idea of maintaining ecological integrity, it's um, it's always something that's in the back of our minds with management decisions, but restoring ecological integrity, that takes extra effort, and it's so rewarding when it's accomplished. Um, this photo comparison, the one being held there was taken around 1995, and I think shows quite the healthy level of succession in this one area of the park close to the visitor center. Um, Several of the park's ecosystems are very sensitive to disturbance, and sand dunes in particular along our shorelines are one of them. So staying on boardwalks in these areas is important um, to the function of these ecological communities, and it takes many, many years for moss and then lichen and then eventually plants to grow in these areas and build the soil quality and then colonize these sandy areas. So this boardwalk was built roughly 30 years ago, and as you can see, it's done an extremely effective job of keeping traffic off the sensitive area and allowing the habitat to flourish. So I not to stand on a soapbox or anything, but it's always an important message that our provincial parks are more important than ever for the protection of our provincial biodiversity and our places that are truly for all Ontarians to enjoy. More and more studies are highlighting the positive impacts that natural areas have on not just the physical well-being, but mental well-being of those that spend time in them, which after this past year has become more important than ever. So when you do come to play, explore, or discover your local park, um, yeah, I encourage you to take some time and just reflect on your surroundings and find something in the park that really connects with you. Um, yeah, because you never know what memories you just might make. So yeah, want to thank Nancy and Jeremy again in the Bruce County Library.
Well, that's a great presentation. Thank you so much, Matt, for sharing that with us. Uh, I just, you know, lucky enough to live here in Saugeen Shores and visited MacGregor Park many, many times. So it's lovely to see all those photos and be like, hey, I know that. I've been there. Um, so yeah, I just wanted to go through a few questions and
Of
just
course.
touch on a couple of things that you had mentioned. So you talked about operating and non-operating parks within Bruce County, and that some have access and some don't. Like they don't have facilities and that sort of thing. Do you know off the top of your head what might be a couple of non-operating parks that would be nice for like a little uh, visit for like a little hike or just to go explore the nature available there?
Um, sure. Uh, again, under the pretext of stay local. Uh, Bayview Escarpment um, is our only non-operating park that isn't in Bruce County.
Okay.
Um, so that's one that I'm not overly familiar with at this point. But we do have uh, closer to Tobermory. There's
Hmm.
Little Cove. Parking is extremely limited, but it is a lovely little swimming area. And then my personal favorite, and it was part of Explore the Bruce a few years ago, would be uh, White Bluff, um, uh, Smoky Head White Bluff Provincial Park,
Hmm.
and it's got an excellent section of trail that goes through a variety of different habitats. Hope Bay Forest would be another one. Again, very limited parking, um, but a lovely trail and very interesting um, bird species in the spring, as well as uh, flora coming up in late spring and summer.
Great, thank you. That's some great suggestions. And as you were mentioning too, with parks becoming more and more popular, over the past year, people wanting to get out and explore some maybe other spaces that they weren't aware of in their communities and locally for sure. We've had a
Yeah.
question submitted through our web form, and it's from Jess, and she wants to know, what do you see as the future of provincial parks? Will the province continue to add more parks, more space to existing parks, or more maintained campsites?
Oh wow, great question. Um, so I don't know if I have the answer to that. It might be above my pay grade, uh,
Pure
but
conjecture.
yeah, pure conjecture. I think there's a lot of support right now for our provincial park system, and uh, and with so many folks from Ontario, wanting to get out and camp, um, I think that support will continue. Uh, it's has been in park since 2006, and it seems like every year um, like we've gotten a little bit more popular. People want to get out and camp.
Hmm.
So my hope is that we see more parks. Uh, but yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah, it would be lovely to be able to add more parks to our system and create a little bit more space and especially for camping and that too. People are really really enjoying and embracing uh, camping and being outside. So that's a great question. Thanks, Jess, for submitting that today. Appreciate that. Um, a couple other things I wanted to just to touch on, you mentioned the buckthorn baggies. I thought that
Yeah.
was really cool. When I was last in the park, I saw them there and I wasn't sure what they were. So thank you for explaining that.
Oh, happy to. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great a maintenance tool. That's fantastic. So, and it's always a complete mystery for me.
Happy to help.
Yeah. Another question I had too was the McGregor Park, there's usually a shore cleanup in the spring. Do you know if that will be occurring this year?
Um, I hope so. Stay tuned and watch our social media channels for updates on
Okay.
that. I believe the tentative date is is May 11th.
Okay.
And I've been in chats with our charitable organization, the Friends of MacGregor Point,
Mhm.
as to how we can work together with that. So yeah, there'll be some more direction coming out in terms of logistics, keeping with groups within your bubble, that kind of thing. But yeah, stay tuned. More information should be out in the coming weeks.
Great. That's awesome. And what a fabulous project too. I know people have taken part in that before, and they're always surprised by what they manage to collect off the beach.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Um, so yes, and you mentioned your social media. So you are on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. And you
Yep.
also mentioned the Friends of MacGregor Park. I know that they have a good website as well, and I believe they have a Facebook account too. So if you want more information about the Friends of MacGregor Park, you can find them online for sure. And MacGregor Park itself has a wonderful website for more information if people are looking for those things. And yeah, definitely keep in touch and up to date with what's happening at the park. I did want to talk about the Park Pass program just for a second. Um, so, Ontario Provincial Parks, so this is like a province-wide thing, and libraries are partnering to lend free one-day passes to any Ontario Provincial Park. So all you need to do is request a pass from your local library and check it out with your library card, and you show your pass at the park gate for a free day use of vehicle entry into the park. So it's not for camping or anything like that. It's just if you wanted to, drive in and use the skating loop in the winter, that sort of thing, and it's good for your vehicle day pass. So Bruce County Public Library offers one week lend for these passes, and each of our locations has 3 passes available to lend, but they have been very popular, so you may have to put your name down on a list and just wait for a bit for an available pass. And we expect that these will be a super popular thing as the summer rolls on and into the fall. So, but what a great program and partnership between Ontario Provincial Parks and Ontario Public Libraries. So yeah, so just check with your local public library. Bruce County has them. If you're watching from further away, you'll have to check with your local library there to see if they have them as well. Um, yeah, anything you want to add to that, Matt?
Just with the increased popularity this year, it and last year experiencing capacity limits on day users. Just keep keep an open mind with any potential
Mm,
wait times, and it's always best to give the park a call if you want to come in on a long weekend or something, and just check with your local park to see what their capacity limits
right,
at.
and I know that I've been talking with some people who are saying, generally during the middle of the week, in the middle of the afternoon, um, you know, historically it hasn't really been very busy at all, but now we're finding that the park is actually fairly busy throughout the week. So it's definitely a good idea. Even though you have your pass in hand, you're going to want to call the park ahead of time just to make sure that the capacity is good. So
Yeah.
definitely keep that in mind. I also wanted to share today the library is also a good source for uh, other resources if you're thinking about doing some camping or visiting a provincial park. So we also, obviously we have lots of birding guides and wildlife guides and flora and fauna and all that sort of thing. But I brought in some things that were kind of a little bit more specific to camping and visiting our parks. So the first book is called "See You at the Campground." It's a guide to discovering community, connection, and happier family in the great outdoors. So that's kind of a cool book right there. And then 150 nature hotspots in Canada. This actually has a shout out to page in here just on MacGregor Park. So that's kind of a neat thing, and it sings the praises of the park. So it does. It has some excellent, a nice shout out for MacGregor Park in this book. And this is a cute little picture book that we just got, Fatima's Great Outdoors. It's about an immigrant family and they're having their first adventure camping at a park. So that's a super, super cute little story, because there are lots of people that are just discovering their parks for the very first time. A couple resources for things that you might want to do at the park or explore. So climbing trees and muddy knees. This is another neat children's book. Just lots of different activities. How to build a shelter, how to collect water and find food. All sorts of really cool little fun activities and resources in there that you can do with the kiddos. And of course, you can't, go camping without having a campfire and then attempting to cook your own food. So this one is Feast by Firelight, because you're going to want to try to cook something over your campfire. So yeah, so lots of different topics and resources available at the library. Along with some neat lending, we've started lending out snowshoes. So, if you want to visit the park in the winter and grab a set of snowshoes and try that out, we have those available with your library card as well. Yeah, so lots of things available there. So I think, Matt, was there anything else that you wanted to add today?
No, I think that was it for me, but I will be checking out that campfire cooking book that you mentioned.
You will be having a feast.
Perfect.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for taking time and sharing your information with us today. And for more information, please feel free to contact Matt at MacGregor Park or visit their website, like we mentioned. Be sure to follow them on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And also thank you to our Digital Services Coordinator, Jeremy, for looking after all the technical details today. And thank you to our Communications Coordinator, Stephen, for setting up the YouTube event and for promoting the event. Remember to subscribe to Bruce County Public Library on YouTube, where you can find more live and recorded presentations, stories for children, and activities you can do from home. And also a reminder that your Bruce County Public Library membership is free. And if you don't have a card, you can call your local branch to arrange a curbside registration, which I know people are just gonna drive out right now and just go and get those cards. You can use it for things like the day pass, like we talked about, and check our website as well for upcoming virtual programs like Composting 101, which we have the end of the month, the Big Library Read Book Club, our spring, and right now we're having our spring break online mini Comic-Con, so there's lots of activities for the kids to do throughout the week, including Thursday night's D&D tutorial with a Dungeon Master, so that should be kind of fun. Our next live presentations are Thursday, April 22nd, when we learn about pollinator gardens through the Butterfly Way project, and May 3rd with Master Gardeners of Grey Bruce Gardening for Beginners presentation. And our next Library Talks With is on May the 6th at 2 o'clock when we host Bruce County Museum and Cultural Center. May is Museum Month, and even though their doors are currently closed, there's still lots happening behind the scenes. So I'm looking forward to chatting with them and finding out what's going on over at the museum. So thank you again today to Matt, and thank you to everybody today for tuning in. And I wish you all a wonderful Tuesday. Take care.